An 11-year-old climbed back into a race car just weeks after losing his father, and standing on the sidelines, watching every single lap, his uncle. 3 words. That's all it took to sum up everything this family's been through. This is bigger than a finish position. This is about legacy, grief, and what it means to keep going when the sport you love is also the place where your pain lives. Brexton Busch, son of the late NASCAR champion Kyle Busch, returned to grassroots racing competition this week at Charlotte Motor Speedway's Cookout Summer Shootout. He ran in the Young Lions division. First race back, a 6th place finish. Second night, a runner-up. For a kid processing one of the hardest losses imaginable, those results speak for themselves. But the moment that stopped the NASCAR world wasn't on the track. It was Kurt Busch, Kyle's older brother, a NASCAR Cup champion in his own right, standing trackside hollering support at his nephew. Kyle Busch wasn't just Brexton's father. He was his coach, his crew chief from the family kitchen, his biggest critic and his loudest fan. Kyle documented nearly every lap Brexton ever turned, from karting circuits to Charlotte road trips. That relationship was one of the most visible father-son stories in all of American motorsports. Now Kyle is gone. And the question that nobody wanted to answer out loud was, who fills that void? The NASCAR community rallied fast after Kyle's passing. Drivers, teams, longtime fans, the outpouring was real. But support from the broader community is different from having family in your corner at the track, different from having someone who shares that last name walk up beside you before a race. Kurt showing up at Charlotte, visible, vocal, presence signals something. It tells the paddock, the fans, and maybe most importantly, Brexton himself, you still have someone in this family who's done this at the highest level and is ready to walk this road with you. Let's be real about something. Returning to competition this quickly after losing a parent, that's not a small thing. That's a significant emotional decision, and whoever is guiding Brexton made a calculated call that getting back behind the wheel serves him better than sitting still. From a driver development standpoint, that's probably correct. Racing is a discipline. It requires focus, repetition, and the ability to compartmentalize under pressure. Those are life skills as much as they are racing skills. Getting Brexton back in competition while that muscle memory is still sharp, and while he has the support structure around him, makes strategic sense. But here's the layer most people are glossing over. Kurt Busch himself has dealt with adversity at this sport's highest level. He stepped away from full-time competition after a concussion that nobody wanted to fully acknowledge until much later. He knows what it feels like when the thing you love becomes complicated. That personal experience gives him a credibility with Brexton that very few people on this planet could offer right now. Brexton's own post-race message showed real maturity. He acknowledged the driver who beat him, identified his own mistake, and said, "Learn and move on." That's not typical 11-year-old language. That's the product of years of coaching from a father who understood this sport at its deepest level. The foundation Kyle built is still there. The question is whether the right people can build on it. Kurt stepping into a mentorship role, even informally, could be one of the most important developments in the Busch family story going forward. Social media did what social media does when something genuinely emotional happens in sports. It stopped scrolling. Kurt's trackside message spread fast, and the responses weren't the usual takes and arguments crowd. This was the NASCAR community showing something closer to collective relief. Relief that Brexton was back. Relief that he had family beside him. Brexton's own post drew hundreds of comments, not just from fans, but from people in and around the sport who have watched this family for years. The emotional contrast was real, grief and momentum existing in the same breath. There are always those who will question whether returning to competition this soon was the right call, but those voices were quiet this week. The dominant narrative was simple. A kid who loves racing got back in the car, and his family was there. Best case, Kurt becomes a consistent presence in Brexton's development, not replacing Kyle, but bridging the gap between the foundation Kyle built and wherever Brexton ultimately lands. Brexton progresses through the grassroots ranks with a clear support system, eventually making the step to late models and beyond with real institutional knowledge behind him. The Busch name stays relevant in NASCAR, not through nostalgia, but through results. Worst case, the emotional weight becomes too much too soon. The scrutiny that comes with being a Busch in NASCAR, even at the youth level, turns into pressure instead of fuel. Without Kyle's direct coaching presence, development stalls. Brexton walks away from racing on his own terms, choosing a different life. It would be understandable, and it would still be a loss for the sport. Leave us your take. Here's what we want to know from you. Can Kurt Busch fill this role for Brexton, not replace Kyle? That's not what we're asking. but as a mentor, as a guide, as the family member who has stood on the biggest stages this sport has to offer. Does Kurt have what it takes to carry this responsibility? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you think another figure in Brexton's corner could be just as important to his development, tell us who and why. If you're new here and the story hit home, there's a subscribe button right below this video. We cover American motorsports the way it deserves to be covered. See you on the next one.